It is the fourth Monday of the month, 6 o'clock. Please join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Smith. Here. Mrs. Movena. Here. Mrs. Clark Pearson.
Here.
Mr. Quina.
Here.
Mrs. DeFort.
Here.
President McKinnon.
Here. Okay. I will entertain a motion for the approval of agenda items.
I'll move that the Grand Ledge Public Schools Board of Education approve the March 25th, 2019 agenda items as presented.
Support.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion passes 6-0. Now come to the approval of consent agenda items. I'll entertain a motion.
I move the Grand Ledge Public Schools Board of Education approve the March 25th, 2019 consent agenda items as presented.
Support.
Discussion?
I do have one correction. I was there. Wasn't indicated in the attendee. Thank you. On the 3:11 minutes.
Okay. Any other further discussion?
I just have a quick question. Katie, how is that pronounced? Mullenkamp?
Yes.
Is that previously Katie Boyd?
No.
Okay, all right, just wondering. Because I knew she had a baby. Yeah, okay, all right, thanks.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion passes 6-0. Come now to reports. First, I have the Capital Connection, or, no, I'm sorry. Jared has the Capital Connections. Revote.
Old habits, right? Okay, as far as progress, nothing earth-shattering to report. As far as anything moving substantially in the legislature, however, lots of things this time of year get introduced, as I'm sure a lot of us know. So the various snow day bills, 4206, 4250, whether that's for waiving during state of emergency or providing an alternative for instructional hours as opposed to the day requirement, have all been introduced and are in committee. There's 4006 that would eliminate the tax on pensions. The analysis so far suggests that would be a $75 million loss to the school aid fund annually. Then there is the 4369, which eliminates the restrictions on school start dates before or after Labor Day, subject to the waivers, of course, that can be in place. House Bill 4311, lawful internet gaming. That has already generated some concern that it will drive people into their homes. The amount of funds, the tax on the internet gaming is at 5% that's proposed, as opposed to 10% for in-person gaming. So the concern there is everyone will stay in their slippers and gamble at home, and that's less money for the school aid fund. Again, introduced. So obviously if any of these start getting traction, they'll get more attention. But that's what I have so far, unless anyone's spotted anything else.
I saw the update on the work keys as far as the possibility of eliminate that assessment, and they're talking about it, but there were several business groups that were not in favor of that because they felt they used the data. But one of the reasons they were talking about doing that is because no one used the data. So, a little bit mixed messages, but it's still in the Education Committee?
Yes.
And what about, did we talk about this last month, or maybe something came through about raising the requirements on teacher evaluations?
Yes.
So where is that at?
So I did a quick check on that before I came here. That's still there, basing it in larger part on, if I think I recall, the M-STEP progress. But that's still in committee, as last I checked.
Did,
Okay.
do you know, did they, I saw something and I wasn't certain if it was approved for one more year to change it to 25%, but then they said they still wanted to, they didn't want to change it for 40% for the following year, which was part of the original proposal, because they wanted to have time for discussion before they made that change for a future year. So my understanding was they had approved it for 25 for this year. Is that
In other words, carried it forward
correct?
as it currently stood.
Right, but only for the 1 year versus 2, which is what they were, I think, discussing. Does that sound right?
Sounds great.
Okay,
I'm gonna
that's-
confirm that,
that's what
though,
I-
since that's, yeah, that's right.
Okay, I relying on my memory, which doesn't always.
And the other thing that comes to my mind, I just recently saw it, there's so much legislation targeted at schools and education, because we've dropped so significantly over the last 10 years. Were they changing the PSAT, making that the new testing requirement in 7th and 8th grade to the PSAT as opposed to the M-STEP?
Just 8th grade, right? Yeah,
Just 8th grade? And how soon are they going to do that?
next spring, I thought. There was an article in the paper today that said next spring. What, is it this spring? Oh, it's this spring. Just 8th grade, dropping the,
Yeah, they have-
but they'll still take the M-STEP for science and social studies. So,
Any logic to that? Anything?
well, I mean, it makes sense to get them ready for the SAT, but it screws up with teacher evaluations, so.
Exactly. That's where it doesn't connect for me. And then now we're talking about maybe giving a waiver for all the snow days this year.
Right.
It just, it boggles my mind. I can't connect the dots.
Anything else? Okay. Jay Bennett emailed the Eaton-Risa report. I'll read it for you right now. We have renewed agreement with the Ingham ISD to provide public relations and communication service from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2022 for an amount not to exceed $190,575, including a one-year extension option for 2023. We approved the Eaton-Risa 5-year common calendar for 2019-2020 through 2023-2024. Hope to see you all at the Region 6 Legislative Breakfast on April 12th and our Eaton Casaba, is that right? Casba? Okay. Yeah, Casba on April 30th. Thanks, Jay. That's the Eaton-Risa report. Grand Ledge Education Foundation.
We did meet, we had quite a lengthy meeting and have made huge strides in getting our finances back in order. We have a new treasurer who has been, he's very well known already now at DART and Eaton Federal due to his getting in there almost daily to get all the signatures and everything ready. So that's moved forward, which is good news for the foundation. We also have the Josh Spalsbury Comet Chase 5K coming up on June 22nd. That will be the same weekend as Yankee Doodle Days.
I have to say, when you said finances in order and that he was at DART, and I'm thinking DART container, what you're talking about is signature cards, not donations, okay.
Correct. There was a lot that had to be caught up, that had been, the position was not filled immediately after Jim Winstanley resigned, so things needed to be caught up, so I think we're very close.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent's report.
Just a couple of items. First of all, congratulations to the performers and staff for The Lion King. It ran last week and over the weekend. Another outstanding performance. Next, the 16th Annual Jason Plight Memorial Dinner is coming up on April 12th. Grand Ledge High School students are awarded scholarships from the Memorial Fund for art and swimming, two of Jason's passions. And finally, a shout out to Sun Theater owner Chuck Pantera. Recently, Chuck scheduled a field trip for the Wacusta first graders who fell prey to one of the mini snow days this year. Chuck had them down to the theater and did not charge them anything. I know the students thoroughly enjoyed that, so thanks to Chuck. Finally, I'd say spring break is next week, and hope safe travels to everybody who's headed for warmer weather. Thank you.
Thank you.
One quick note, on April 12th, I'm planning to attend the legislative breakfast.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Excellent.
Great.
we'll add that to the report to the extent there is anything out of that, so.
Thank you.
Give 'em that.
Okay, now we have public comment on non-agenda items, if there is any. Okay.
You want me to read?
April 8th.
Mr. Price, would you like the instructions?
read
Are you good?
instructions.
I'm okay.
Okay.
I don't know how this timing thing's gonna go, like,
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
'cause I don't know how long it's gonna take me. 'Cause once
We
I-
do.
once I get going- Last time I was up here, I had like notes, and then I couldn't see, and then I realized I was getting old. I'm like, oh, okay, so, one of the things I want to talk about, my math scores. We were talking about standardized tests, the NOEA test. We have to give the NOEA test 3 times a year. Don't ask me why, but we do. Now, I thought that's what we used. I didn't think it was the M-STEP was what we used for evaluation. We used the NOEA at our school, I thought, but here they're there. So I gave the NOEA test, and what I want to talk to you about, I just heard the high school numbers are down. So the math numbers, my kids, second time they took it, 80% of my students have made yearly growth already. Now, I assumed that meant I could be done. But they tell me I can't be done, even though 80% of my kids have already made growth. Seriously, that's what I said. It was good news. I've never done good news before, and I'm like, hey, I want to share good news. I think I'm done. That's really not why I'm here. Andrea Dionese, I don't know if you know Andrea Dionese. She teaches with me. Fantastic teacher. Great ideas. Should be an administrator. Won't do it. I don't know why. But she and I got together, and we started to offer. One of the things we noticed was that our students, we had some of the best and the brightest students in the 8th grade, but they weren't scoring as high as I felt they should be able to on the standardized tests. So we looked at what we realized were, because they were taking algebra, they weren't getting all of the 8th grade Common Core. So they were missing things. And it's not that they didn't know it, it's not that they weren't smart, they just never been exposed to it. So what we offered to the students, and John's son did one, we offered to the students geometry this year at the 8th grade level. Now, some of the kids had done that, but going over to the high school is kind of problematic because of the bus and all of those things. So we offered that to the students. I have students, I have 28 of them. 24 of them are doubling up. Not only are they taking geometry, but they're also taking algebra class because that's what they want to do. So you have the best and the brightest. Now, when I started this year, 50% of them were in the 90th percentile on the NOEA. As of the middle scores, I have those kids, 75% of my students are now 95% or higher on the NOEA scores, and they are just, it's phenomenal what the scores that they're doing and the stuff they're doing. And I can't believe Andrea does such a great job, and it was a great idea, and I'm so glad we do it. But I just want you to know, I don't know, and I don't want to get critical. I don't know if it's trimesters, but our kids are doing what needs to be done at the middle school. And every time I come here, that's one of the reasons I want to say something. It seems like always at math scores, we get bashed, we get bashed, we get bashed. Our math scores, I think, are good. My math scores are fine. So I don't know what's happening between those two, and I would love to talk to you about it. I've talked to Dr. Gabriel about, I think we double up too much. My kids, I think, are ready for Algebra A. I think they do 90% of the same stuff they do in Algebra A when they get to the high school. I don't know if we can change that. But just so you know, 8th grade is fine. Our scores are great. I think our scores are better than they have been in a long time. They are. If you look at them, even our M-STEP from last year are great. So I don't know what's going on. I just want you to know our scores are good. Everything's doing great. Geometry class, brilliant, great idea. Andrea Dinese should get a bonus, a little bit something for her, but we're doing a great job. All right, just wanted you to know that, just FYI.
Thank you, Mr. Price.
Thanks.
Okay, let's move on. Get control of this.
Okay. Now it's time for new business. We have the approval of the food service management contract renewal with Chartwells. I will entertain a motion.
I move the Grand Ledge Public Schools Board of Education approve the contract renewal with Chartwells for food service management as presented.
Support.
Any discussion, questions for Dr. Jones?
Just a comment, they've done a wonderful job for us for a long time. There was one point where we were, I think, $100,000 in the hole in food service several years ago, and Chartwells came in and really turned that around for us. And I think they do a very nice job for our district.
I have to echo Kim's comments. At one point in time, it was not the food service process, the financials were not the best. Chartwells did come in, a wonderful program out there. Never had any problems with them. Darren was very knowledgeable in food nutrition,
Yeah.
but he is also knowledgeable in budget and financing. And that, to me, I love that. I would love that.
Really?
So he feeds the children well, and yet he also makes sure that it's within budget.
Yeah.
So I would wholeheartedly support renewing this contract. Just say thank you to Chartwells and to Darren. Unfortunately, Darren could not be here tonight. He's ill. Otherwise, he'd be out there in the audience too.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the same. Motion passes 6-0. Now time for public comment on agenda items. Is there any comment? Any public? Okay. Comments from staff and board? Any comments?
This has got to be the quickest meeting I've ever gone to.
I think John Shiplet owns that one.
Yeah.
Oh.
14 minutes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a quick comment. I want to give a shout out to all the performers at the Lion King as well. It was an excellent display of what our schools can do, and I really liked how the younger children were brought up and kind of utilized to kind of learn the ropes. I thought that was a really cool thing. So that's my positive. My kind of my negative is the issue that happened last week with the threat. I think it's important for parents to continue the dialogue with their children on expectations with regard to not doing these sorts of things, and to really, in today's age, we need to be vigilant and teaching our children to make sure that they are always doing the right thing so that we don't have an incident like we had last week.
Yes, I would like to comment on it. I guess it was Mr. Price. You didn't actually identify yourself, but someone shouted out your name for me. I had a little trouble following the whole thread of what you were saying, but I guess my understanding is that Ms. Dinese, sorry, it's been a long day for me today, been up a long time, that the idea was that the kids were doing algebra but had a gap with geometry because the testing covered that, and that somehow we're duplicative when we get to the high school. Sometimes I guess you have to go back, make sure you're well-grounded, but Guess I want to say that I appreciate it that you came in to discuss it, because I don't have teachers come in very often to talk about what's going on in their classroom and how that ties into the whole curriculum and what they're seeing going forward, going from 8th grade to 9th grade, or preparation from the elementary schools into the middle school. So I'm glad to hear it. One of the things I'd once asked was, you know, sometimes we should hear how we can do it better. We don't hear much about that. And I think I caught what you were saying for how we could do it better. And I don't know the structure of your math class and how whether you're team teaching that or whether that's something that you're suggesting for other parts of the math curriculum. I don't know how geometry and algebra actually fit into the middle schools now, because I didn't see much of it and always objected that we didn't have enough algebra in the middle schools back when my kids were there. But at any rate, I appreciate it that you came in, and to the extent that your class can go to 75% of the kids scoring 95%, I think is the number I heard, by the further on in the year, and then they get to high school and they're not as successful. I think that's something that the teachers should be talking about and we should be hearing. So thank you.
And I apologize, I don't know if I'm supposed to talk, but.
Well, actually, you're not, but
For 3 minutes, I can't string it. You would, I would love to talk to you, because I have a myriad of other.
Yep.
I can easily, you can.
I need to throw prompts in there and not have it, but I have a myriad of ideas.
Well, I think there are lots of people that would like to hear them, and I think there should be avenues for that, because I find our math scores to be very frustrating. They're going up, but I think we could do a lot better, and of course, we always should think we can do better. So please keep that discussion going. Thank you.
I wanted to also comment on The Lion King. It was a wonderful production, and we were there opening night, and just to see, as Mr. Quinas said, the younger kids involved, and I'm not sure what the rationale was behind that, if it was intentional to get them engaged earlier, but the numbers of students that were able to be involved was wonderful. I also wanted to mention, for March's Reading Month, I was able to get into all of the elementary schools, and also actually made a visit to the middle school. But I was in probably about 50 classrooms reading, and it was wonderful to see, have an opportunity to talk to a lot of the teachers and support staff and see the enthusiasm they have for what they're doing each and every day. And of course, I love to read to kids, so that was a real treat for me. But I think that I got a lot of interesting comments from staff, as well as some parents that were in the buildings, and they've got lots of good ideas. Other staff, like Mr. Price, who have ideas about how we could do things even better. And so I agree with what Ms. Pearson was saying earlier, that we really need to make sure that those conversations, there's a place to have those, and to encourage the staff to continue to have those, because you're the ones who know best what's going on and what our kids need. So would appreciate that you continue to pursue those conversations.
By the way, that reminds me, if I could just jump in, I want to do a little bit of a shout out to my sister, Nancy Clark Coleman, who invited the Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist out to Wacusta to read to the kids last week. He's a pretty impressive guy, and it's not just because he's 6'8", but pretty wonderful that he came out to Wacusta.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you to Mr. Price and Ms. Diney. Same thing. I realize that these are important conversations, but I know as a classroom teacher, sometimes you can't wait for the conversations to happen. So I want to commend them for looking at their data and making a change and doing it within themselves and making the right decisions. And then, like I said, these conversations can still happen, obviously, at the high school for all the positives that trimesters bring. yeah, you can, if you take 2 math classes a year, it might be first and third trimester, and the test might fall in second trimester, and that, you know, you can have natural gaps there, but, again, those are all good discussions, but being able to look at your data and just make changes on the fly, I think that's pretty impressive. So thanks for doing that.
Anyone else?
Okay. On to future topics. We have a board bond advisory meeting, Monday, April 8th, 2019 at 5:30 in the Sodden Room 107. We have a work session that same night, Monday, April 8th at 6 p.m., Sodden Administrative Conference Room next door, and the countywide board meeting, Tuesday, April 30th, 2019 at 6 p.m. at the Eaton Risa in Charlotte. With that said, we are adjourned at 6:25.